Hello and welcome back to the Trip On podcast at the second episode about Let's Talk Disneyland Abu Dhabi. Alright, and then we go to the next part, which is, I think you cannot deny that there's also a very strong comparison to Dubai. And it's interesting because we have discussed Dubai and their theme park industry quite extensively in our podcast. What I see is online, but also amongst many people that are not so familiar with the UAE, is that people are constantly comparing this to the Dubai theme park landscape, and also especially they're making a connection to the failed theme park landscape in Dubai.
Yeah, I've seen some speculations that it might not happen because some of the parks did not happen actually in Dubai. But I think this is a misleading a bit opinion because maybe it is based on some projects that actually were not pulled off in Dubai. However, you should distinguish between the two cities and between what is being actually done on the Yas Island. And I think you have more to say about the project that was not done in Dubai.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, you have to make a very clear distinction between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Those are two different cities, two different emirates. And also there's a different financial development behind the two cities.
It's basically two different governments and rulers, the sheikhs. And both of them have totally different vision and focus on. So I think that's mainly Abu Dhabi is mainly becoming a family-friendly tourism and travelers destination. And I think Dubai is aiming a bit into something else. Maybe I would say more single travelers and more
luxury.
Youth, luxury, influencers and
let's go quickly through what people are referring to when they talk about Dubai. Obviously, you cannot talk about the theme park industry in the UAE without mentioning Dubai Land, the famous Dubai Land project that was supposed to be beating Disney World when it comes to its sheer scale. It was supposed to be more than 260 square kilometer development. And definitely give a listen to the IMG Worlds of Adventure episode and the Motion Gate episode, where we also discussed Dubai Land, because both of those parks were originally planned for Dubai Land. And just very briefly, Dubai Land was a giant, a kind of also an intent that was presented by the Sheikh and his development companies in Dubai, which was supposed to be a collection of theme parks and a lot of other leisure venues, which was supposed to rival Disney World when it comes to its scale. In the Middle East, in Dubai, right next to the city, what was announced in a timeline around Dubai Land was first a Universal Studios Dubai Land, and this was not a small announcement. There was actually already a layout for the park, there was a maquette of the park. Universal Studios did the official announcement themselves, and they were also giving updates about construction and development. There was also a DreamWorks park announced, and that's interesting because the DreamWorks IP can now be found in Motion Gate Dubai. So they didn't disappear. It was still executed but differently. There was also an announcement of a Six Flags park. And this Six Flags park has been bouncing around in Dubai as to, is it going to happen, is it not going to happen? So the Six Flags park in Dubai Land was cancelled. Then later it was announced again in Dubai Parks and Resorts. But it was cancelled again. And some of the coasters actually got a new location within the resort. And of course, right now we know that Six Flags has a massive collaboration, a massive development in Saudi Arabia, which is also in the desert in a neighboring country of the UAE. Then the Marvel Superheroes Park was announced, also cancelled. Later, the Marvel IP could be found in IMG Worlds of Adventure, and it's now still there. A Legoland Park was announced, which was cancelled, but which is built in the Dubai Parks and Resorts, so you can find it now next to Motion Gate. They were also talking about an F1 theme park, and they were also talking about an F1 track. This was entirely cancelled. There is a racing circuit right now in Dubai, but it doesn't have the official F1 FIA license to be F1 track. Not like, for example, the F1 track on Yas Island. That one is way more prominent still. 20th Century Fox Park was also announced, but this was a very brief announcement, and this was right before the whole project collapsed. And also, of course, this one is entirely cancelled.
Yes, so as you can see, it's quite of a list of parks that were cancelled. So I believe that controversy comes from from some specific data, and people are a bit skeptical because there were already big announcements.
Yeah.
Some of the very ambitious theme parks, like Universal, were already even started, so there is already a gate standing on the desert, but it did not happen because of the crisis in 2008. And maybe it is a bit of a symbol that in Dubai some things are being in the planning, and they are thinking big, but then at the end
It doesn't
some
happen.
projects are not happening.
Yeah, but that's a bit of a Middle Eastern thing, right? That they announce giant plans, which already the rest of the world is kind of frowning upon. Like, is that really possible? You know, and sometimes the numbers are being given, and the numbers don't really make sense. And then in the end, it turns out that it doesn't happen, or it happens much smaller, which also happens in many cases.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe that opinion about Disneyland maybe comes from that, actually.
Yeah, but I think there's also, a healthy dose of skepticism, I think, in this case, because, of course, we do know that the theme park landscape in Dubai is completely different from Abu Dhabi in general. Because currently, even though Dubai Land completely exploded and it didn't happen, because Dubai Land was announced around the time when the financial crisis started, and Dubai was heavily hit by the financial crisis, mainly because it was also a crisis in real estate, and that happened, of course, strongly in Dubai. But what is interesting is, yes, the gate for Universal Studios was built, and I saw it myself. I actually traveled there in 2015. I was in Dubai, and we drove there because I was so interested in, like, is it true, the gate? And yes, the gate was there. There was still even banners on the fences with the announcement for the Universal Park in Dubai. Completely cancelled, never happened. But currently, the Dubai landscape of theme parks is existing. It's not that nothing happened. Right now you have IMG Worlds of Adventure, which is a fully indoor theme park with, as I mentioned earlier, the IP of Marvel in there. So there's, for example, there's New York, and there's Spider-Man and the Avengers and stuff like that. So there is a little bit of Marvel left over there, so that's interesting. There is the Miracle Garden, which is like a flower display garden. So that also happened. I have been there, by the way. I visited in 2015. Then you have Global Village, which is a cultural theme park mainly based around shopping and dining. This is a very successful park, by the way, that the numbers are showing that they're doing somewhere between 7 and 9 million visitors per year. I don't know the exact numbers because they're always a bit different, but that shows that one is also very much aimed towards the family tourism.
And it's always very busy when you're...
Very busy, yeah. We've been there several times. So very successful leftover from the Dubai Land project, because the Global Village already existed in Dubai, but it was supposed to be in Dubai Land, and it was built on the spot where Dubai Land was supposed to be, and that one is still there. The rest was not built around it. And then you have Dubai Parks and Resorts, which is a resort that was developed at a completely different location than the original Dubai Land plan. And this resort houses the Motion Gate Park, which is a film studio themed park. Within there, the DreamWorks Hall. And that's actually a very impressive park. Definitely listen to that episode. There's a Legoland, and there's now recently the Real Madrid World Park, which is quite disappointing, but it used to be the Bollywood Park. And this also shows that Dubai thought, we build a Bollywood Park and all the Indian people who come to Dubai will visit the Bollywood Park, and that turned out to be a massive disappointment. So I think also maybe that might feed the criticism a bit that it didn't work in Dubai, so why would it work here? But you have to explain that the Bollywood Park was a park that was pretty bare on the level of attractions. I've been there myself when it was Real Madrid World, and there's almost nothing to do, but they did ask, I think it was 90 euros entrance. You're not gonna be able to compete with something like Miracle Garden, Global Village, for that price, because Global Village has been traditionally somewhere between 5 or 6 or 7 euros entrance. So obviously that is much more attractive for families.
But also, Dubai Mall has offer of a lot of activities for kids. There is Kidzania in Dubai Mall. There are several interactive exhibitions and museums. There is, of course, the aquarium.
Yeah.
But even if we look at the Palm Jumeirah, it also offers actually a water park, which is one of the best right now water parks in the world. We had the chance to visit this one as well, and we had an amazing day there.
Yeah, and
the
that
park
water
was
park is
full.
doing extremely well.
Yeah,
So
the
yeah.
park was full, and we were even thinking about the quick pass because we were afraid we're not gonna do a lot of slides. So I would say it is also attractive, and even though maybe the families are not the main focus, but there are lots of things to do with the kids as well in Dubai.
So then we get to the point that why would it be different on Yas Island? Well, I think there's a couple of things that you can say about it. First of all, Yas Island is already an operating and successful tourism destination. And Yas Island is quite well known, not only within the industry, but also amongst, for example, theme park enthusiasts, because you cannot deny that the quality of, for example, Warner Bros. And SeaWorld is extremely high, and the collection of roller coasters that is in Ferrari World is also very well known over the world. And besides the fact that, of course, Yas Island is always trying to do something that is completely different from what they've done before, which leads to a very interesting mix of theme parks in one location. Besides that, Yas Island is literally 10 minutes from the main airport. So 10 minutes from Zayed International Airport. And that is also very special. I don't know a lot of theme park resorts or theme park locations that are so close to a major airport. It works very well. When you are on Yas Island and when you, for example, check out from your hotel and you have to get to the airport, there's no rush. You literally just order a taxi.
It takes 10 minutes
Yeah,
to get there.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yas Island is also situated basically on the way from the airport to the city. So it is very common for people to be exposed to Yas Island. You really see that. You see, of course, also the promotions of Yas Island. They're very good with that. There's always banners everywhere. They always show you that there's stuff to do on Yas Island. By the way, you do see, for example, the Ferrari World roof.
I think each park promotes itself already when you're in the island. You are feeling like you cannot skip another park because you are already there and you can see beautiful facades of other huge parks.
Yeah.
So you're surrounded by them.
And I think we have noticed it ourselves when friends and people were coming to Dubai, that they always mentioned like, oh yeah, I also want to visit Abu Dhabi. And many of those people were aware that there is also Yas Island and there is Ferrari World and there is Warner Brothers. And in many cases, people actually are surprised by what is on offer in Abu Dhabi.
And it was sometimes hard to choose for them because they had only one day and there are already quite some parks on the offer. But what is great is that they offer, the Yas Island Miral offers combined tickets, and sometimes you can buy 2 park entries. So it is combined in a way, and you can maybe choose the offer that suits you the most.
Yeah, which is, by the way, a very good promotion also, because the ticket price per day per park is then very low if you calculate it. If you do the 3 or the 4 day park tickets. Also, Miral offers package deals with their hotels, which, by the way, also the hotels are on the island, so you're right next to the parks. And those package deals are really good. It really results in a price that is much cheaper than, for example, visiting Disney World or any of the other big resorts from the other players. So
yeah, and Dubai is also planning to build a new airport, Al Maktoum Airport, which is going to be closer to Abu Dhabi than the current one. Yeah. So in a way, the Yas Island is going to be accessible by both airports.
Yeah, and also I think important to mention is that Miral has been gradually improving the quality for each new project that they've been building. So I would say don't underestimate the possibilities of Miral and what they're able to pull off, because we definitely saw with our own eyes that, for example, something like SeaWorld, that is impossible, I think, to compare to anything that exists anywhere in the world. So there's still an option to have something unique like that, even though it carries a name which is known within the industry.
Yeah, and they don't only build, but actually the upkeep is also on the very high level, and everything, even if it was built already a couple of years ago, is still on the very good level, and it's very clean, well maintained. So there is a care. It's not like they build it and they forget, but they actually pay attention to each of the projects.
And let's get to the next point. This is the point where we will talk expectations, or maybe we can even say guesstimations, because there's just not so much known about it. And I would first like to talk about maybe expectations a bit more on the negative side of things. So what are the worries or the troubles that we see with something like this. Do you have anything that you think is something to express?
On the negative side, definitely, I would love to see more humble approach to the workers and to have it done in the good way, that it will be respecting the workers' rights and just the employers building and constructing the park. That it will not become a controversial scandal, but actually, this is a chance right now to improve the image and show that there is thought about it as well. So not only about the development, but about the way that it's going to be developed.
The speed of construction and development, that's an interesting one, because there was already an interview with the chairman of Miral, and he was saying that when they asked about the timeline on the project, he was saying as fast as possible. And they also said, of course, we are not going to compromise on quality. And I hope that this as fast as possible means that what is possible while keeping human rights in mind and also human comfort and decency. So yeah, that's a chance for both Disney and Miral to prove that this is being taken into account and that this shouldn't be a point of criticism with a project like this.
I think also what is a little bit controversial right now is the very basic concept art, because they are showing an icy glass castle on the desert. So it is a little bit the opposite of what you would expect in that location. And I do get the idea of having it extremely modern, high tech, and appealing and extremely futuristic. However, having a glass structure on the desert, I think it's going to be challenging, and I would love to see actually how it looks
Yeah,
like.
it's also known that the glass buildings in the Middle East are always getting very dusty.
Yeah, exactly.
They need a lot of
Dusty.
cleaning. Yeah.
Often it reflects the sunlight, and
Yeah.
it also radiates heat. So it's going to be a challenge for sure. But I'm curious how it's going to be approached.
Yeah. No, I do share this vision of you that we saw with our own eyes that in the Middle East, especially in the really hot desert sun, colors tend to fade much quicker.
That's going to be a challenge as well.
That's going to be a big challenge. And we've seen it especially in, for example, Dubai Parks and Resorts, the colors of the roller coasters, but also the buildings, they just fade much quicker. They need much more maintenance. They need a different approach to what you do in many other countries. And interesting also is that there is very fine dust in the desert, and this very fine dust is slowly building up a layer on top of glass, especially glass surfaces, which makes them look very dirty and matte in many cases. So you do need quite a lot of consideration for that, and you do probably need a lot of cleaning. And with structures like this, it is going to be challenging to get this to shine and to look really bright and beautiful outside in the desert sun, especially because the developments until now, especially the theme parks, have been indoor, and they don't receive the same amount of sun and exposure to the climate.
Yeah, and if you mention the climate, I also hope that, of course, shading and protection from the sunlight is going to be taken into account, and that it will just be pleasant to be outside, even if the different halls or attractions will be connected with the outdoor pathways or walkways, that they actually will be nice and pleasant to be there.
Yeah, park circulation will be very interesting. How do people move around in an outdoor park when it is, for example, close to 50 degrees Celsius? I think also something that I would love to see is not too much vegetation that is not naturally appearing in a climate like this. We have seen, especially, for example, in Dubai, they often have flowers sitting in places where you think, how can these flowers even survive? But they have a lot of irrigation, so they use water to keep the greenery alive. And it's not the most sustainable solution. So I really hope that in this case, they take into account the particular location, the climate, what grows here well, and what makes sense for the park, so that they don't have to do a lot of irrigation in an area in the world where drinking water is already very scarce.
Yeah, exactly. And that it will be more nature use that is actually suitable for the location. And there are some plants like that. There are plants that are holding water inside of them, and they can survive extreme heat.
Yeah, this is the opportunity for them to show that this results in a different type of nature, and that's fine, you know, as long as it is natural and it feels fitting and it looks beautiful. So I really hope that they will also innovate on that front.
Yeah, and another aspect is actually cultural sensitivity and inclusivity, because it is a different region and it has its own culture and also the Islamic values. So I think they will have to integrate some prayer rooms and add things maybe that they've never done before in their designs, also in the master planning. Some, of course, halal options in restaurants, but maybe even some attractions adjusted to the dress code, the way that people are being dressed. So I think there is a list of different things that Disney was not before working with, and they will have to keep in mind.
Yeah, there's, for example, I noticed that there's a completely different approach towards the moments of prayer in many of the Yas venues. We noticed in the mall. I didn't notice it in the theme parks, by the way. So I think they don't do that, for example, not in Warner Bros. But in the mall, in the Yas Mall, instead of having this very specific prayer sung by someone, that is in many cases in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, that is very loud, and it's because, you know, that's the whole purpose, that it's known for people that they should pray. I noticed that in Yas Mall they had an audio track playing which felt very pleasant, which had a much more orchestrated and a more musical tone to it. And we were quite surprised when we heard it, like, oh, that sounds quite amazing. So I think maybe they might be able to pull something off like that in Disney, and they definitely have to take into consideration that, you know, the families also in this part of the world, they do tend to use these spaces much more intense than what you see somewhere else. Like, for example, in Global Village, there was a very clear presence of those prayer rooms and of people following their religious beliefs.
But also the question is Ramadan, because Ramadan is a celebration which happens once per year and it lasts around 1 month. And even during that time, for example, in Global Village, some of the shows are limited and it is a bit calmer in the park, and not everything is actually...
I mean, it's a bit toned down.
Yeah, exactly, because you should not really play loud music, dance, and make some spectacles and shows. And that's also interesting how they are going to approach that, if they're going to adjust and for that 1 month make it a bit different, or keep the offer the same all year round.
Yeah, I think what you see already in many places in the Middle East is that they are differentiating between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. So you might also see that over here, because of course the non-Muslims, so the regular tourists, they wouldn't even really know that it's Ramadan, and they wouldn't take it into account, I guess, when they do visits and if they go, for example, for a Disney park. So it's interesting to see if they also split that and if they have a different approach to both. One of the worries that I have, and which I absolutely hope that it's not going to happen, is that I hope that this will not be built as a theme park which allows for the license holder to be able to pull out while retaining a certain framework, like a neutral framework. What I mean by that is I hope that this is not going to be a theme park of which you see that it was built with the opportunity to say bye to Disney, or for Disney to say bye to Miral, and that what you're left with is a much more neutral theme park that you can use other IPs on. In other words, I hope that it is integrally designed and holistically developed by Disney as a Disney park, and that it's not going to be a bit of a neutral theme park with IPs slapped on top of it. But, you know, I do think that Miral would not let that happen. We also saw that Warner Brothers is very clearly a Warner Brothers park. You cannot easily take away the Warner Brothers IP. So I hope that they are very, very aware of that. There's also another thing that I noticed, that the plot of land near the beachfront that is allocated for the Disney park. It's quite a big plot of land, actually. It's more than 400 hectares. So there's easily space for a big theme park, or even two theme parks next to each other. There are already several blocks of flats that are standing there very near. And also there's a raised highway very close to the highway leading to the next island. So you see a big bridge over there. And I hope this will not interfere with the sightlines and the immersion within the park. This immediately reminds me of something we noticed in Japan. So Universal Studios Japan in Osaka. that park is situated right in the urban development around it, and it's right in an urban environment with big buildings and even a highway next to it. And for Universal Studios, that is maybe a bit more acceptable than for Disney. So, but Disney is really good at hiding its environment, its urban environment in, for example, Disneyland Anaheim. So I hope that they're going to do something similar here, and you will not be able to see, for example, the other buildings or the highway on Yas Island. Maybe let's bring it to a positive note, and let's talk about our hopes or wishes, or maybe the stuff that we really expect. So to start off, I do expect that this will open as a relatively small Disney park with much less emphasis on roller coasters. That's also what I kind of hope, because to be honest, Ferrari World already has a massive offer of roller coasters, like really impressive. And soon there will be something very interesting happening also in Warner Brothers World. They will also have an offer of several thrilling coasters, which I know of. So I hope that the Disney park offers entirely different classes of rides. I hope for giant indoor rides, maybe giant indoor play areas. I immediately think of an indoor zone like the Mermaid Lagoon in Tokyo Disney Sea, which was really impressive, with an indoor play area, some attractions, but also shopping and dining. But also I really hope that in the land of dark rides, because we discussed the UAE dark rides in our face-off episode, that there's a lot of dark rides in the Middle East. I hope that this will be the opportunity for them to build really large-scale, innovative dark rides that are going to be world's first and that are going to be just mesmerizing. Because they do love dark rides over here, and Disney is the perfect partner, I think, to make excellent dark rides with.
What I would also expect is more of regionally themed experiences. And I think they have already a quality to have desert. So maybe some desert themed lands that could be an immersive and more authentic actually experiences, to just use the dunes, oases, architecture, maybe also influenced by Islamic art or design. And also maybe some of the Arabian and Middle Eastern Disney stories, like for example, Aladdin or Jasmine. Maybe that could be also an opportunity to make it more rooted in the region.
Yeah, it is known that some of the most successful Disney animated features never really got the deserved exposure in the Disney parks. First of all, Lion King, which is one of the most successful, also financially most successful films ever, never really got its land. They are now developing Lion King land in Paris. But of course, like you said, Aladdin, that's one of the most successful films in Disney's history. And Aladdin always just got a little flat ride or a walkthrough or a restaurant, but they never really built something significant, like a real Aladdin-themed land or big ride. So yeah, I see the internet is already blowing up with ideas for Aladdin. Yeah. I think it would be awesome if we could see something in this particular Disney park that really fits the desert.
Yeah, but also maybe it would be interesting to see some local folklore, or maybe some local Emirati legends, or some historical fairy tales, if they do have some. That would be also maybe nice.
Yeah, it would be nice if they managed to expose something that people don't know of, that we don't know of, that is very local.
To get to know the culture more, or to understand, it would be cool.
Exactly. You already mentioned that there's a lot of skepticism towards this announcement. You can find on YouTube, on the internet, you can find many articles and videos where people are saying, Disneyland Abu Dhabi, is it real? Is it going to happen? I think that many people are questioning if this can be really done. And many people are maybe also not so familiar with Miral, because I think that, for example, the Disney fans, they might not be that into Miral and Yas Island. And what I do want to express is Miral is known to really take risks, and they are prioritizing new concepts instead of doing recycled ones. Warner Brothers World, for example, consists entirely of new rides. So that's very impressive. There's no second Warner Brothers World in the world, and it's a very unique park. SeaWorld Abu Dhabi is in no way comparable to its sister parks, and even what I have heard that's going to happen for the Harry Potter expansion, that is very exciting. I know that Miral was not tempted by any of the suppliers to simply go with something that already exists. You know, they didn't simplify their options of what to do with the Harry Potter land by choosing, for example, an existing ride like Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure or a clone of the existing Harry Potter dark rides. Apparently, the vision of Miral was we have to do something that hasn't been done before.
And that's true. They go extra mile and they do things that they were not done before.
Exactly. So also in Warner Brothers world, we are going to see something that has never been done before. And that is a very good, I think, lead into what Disney could be doing with Miral. Both Miral and Disney see the world is actually the catchment area for this Disney resort. I think they want to make something new and different, which gives people a reason, an incentive to come to Abu Dhabi, even if you know Disneyland Paris. So I really expect Miral not to settle for clones or for doubles or for, you know, a copy of anything else. I think they will be prioritizing new concepts again. And it is also an incentive, I think, for people to actually to come here and to see it.
And also I would then expect some integration with Yas Island or Sadia Island, so some joint tickets, maybe some resorts offering. So if people will come for Disneyland, that they can also explore the museums, the cultural district, and the other parks.
If it is true that this Disney park will be added to the roster of the other parks and it will become one option within the package deals, then this could be in one single blow, could be one of the most affordable Disney parks to visit. Because if you do the package deals with the Miral parks on Yas Island, you can end up paying not much more than 60 euros per day per park, which is a very good deal for the parks and the quality that you have on offer. Plus, traditionally, of course, now for a long time, the parks haven't been that crowded. So you don't have extreme queue lines yet. And then there is another point also of, let's say, a bit of hope or positivity, is that Warner Brothers World was constructed and subcontracted to Basics. And Basics is a construction company from Belgium, which oversaw the entire civil construction and even the production until the level of show integration and theming. And apparently this company is actually quite known to have quite a good track record with a more Western approach to, for example, workers' rights and the construction planning. And apparently Basics is again involved in the development and the construction of the expansion for Warner Brothers World. So they have already been considered also to be involved in upcoming projects on Yas Island. So I really hope that this kind of makes me hopeful for a better approach in terms of construction and human rights when it comes to Disney. When you talk about agreement or collaboration between a big company, and in this case a company from the US, and a government, you always have to also consider the topics that are a bit more sensitive.
Especially that this is a Disneyland, and usually where the Disneyland is built, Disneyland is profiting from the visitors, and then also the area is developing and there are way more tourists coming.
Yeah, a lot of money is involved in this, and it has a massive economic impact. I think it's also very important to express what are those controversies and why are people sometimes skeptical about this news. We also want to pinpoint that we are definitely not unaware that these things are also a matter in this whole subject and the announcement between Disney and Miral. And I think it's also important that we are both not experts on these subjects, so we don't claim to know everything, we don't have all the answers. So I have a list of topics that I found that are often associated with especially many of the Gulf states or the countries in the Middle East. The freedom of expression, fossil fuels and its economy, of course, policies around sexual orientation and gender identity, advanced surveillance and monitoring and censoring, women's rights, and migrant workers. Those are roughly the subjects that often come up when people are expressing that they don't really align with the values of the Middle East. First of all, freedom of expression. I think, Alex, you have been living in Dubai for a while now, so you can probably say something also about this from your own experience.
So talking about freedom of expression, it is not legal to make public gatherings or protests in the country. And basically, if you don't agree with something, there are no really working unions or organizations that will support you. Or if you come from a different country and you would like to manifest your political views, that is also not allowed.
I found also that what often comes up is that authorities have in many cases counterterrorism justifications to detain and imprison people. And it is definitely illegal by law to assemble or to have workers' unions that express workers' rights publicly. The next topic is fossil fuels. I mean, that's not a surprise because that's a very big topic in the whole world, but definitely in the Middle East. The UAE consistently ranks in the top 10 largest producers and exporters of oil and gas. And this, of course, comes with its own controversies because that doesn't align with the very climate change oriented Western mindset, I think. And there's also this collaboration between all countries and the Climate Accord and the Paris Agreement, where there is kind of this idea that the whole world is trying to head to a better future. And I see that in the Middle East, there tends to be a completely different agenda. And I think it's also logical. It's not only the Middle East, it's not isolated only towards the countries around the Gulf. There's many countries in the world that have big reserves of gas and oil. And you would be surprised of some countries that earn a lot of money with them, also in Western Europe.
Yeah, and if I may add to it, it's a city that requires a lot of air conditioning and a lot of energy goes for the cooling of the houses. And this is also not environmentally friendly in general. Also, the constructions that are being done all over the country. But also on the smaller scale, it is a totally different mindset because, for example, in the building where I live, there is no way to segregate trash. And for me, coming from Europe, it was a big surprise because everywhere now we have to, of course, separate plastic, paper, and over there everything just goes to one bin. Maybe sometimes we get a little bit extreme in Europe about some solutions or about the climate. And over there, I have the feeling that it's way more relaxed. So it is completely on the other side. Everything is highly lit. There is no really protection for the light pollution by night. Every building has lit facades. And that also consumes energy, of course.
Obviously, it's very difficult to talk about a sustainable future when you have a mega city in the desert. Those things don't really go hand in hand. So I think the often heard criticism is that while the UAE is really trying to burnish its image towards sustainability, at the same time, behind the scenes, it is known that oil and sustainability is still not really high on the agenda when it comes to policies. And I think that's the problem that many people have.
Yeah, and I think maybe people would like solutions to use the existing energy, solar energy, to use it because it is given, it is sunny all year round. It is used in some projects, but I think it should be more and on a larger scale.
Yeah, I think what people hope is that in those new worlds, let's say, that they have more of an exemplary role in going towards a more sustainable future. But it seems like that is still a bit far away, and I hope that it's gonna increase, and I hope that it's gonna accelerate soon. Then we have another topic, which is the policies around sexual orientation and gender identity. I think this is a very clear one. What I found is that there's often criticism towards the UAE and especially also towards Abu Dhabi because there are still a lot of federal penal codes that criminalize certain acts or behaviors, and they are clearly directed towards people within the LGBT community. And it also allows authorities to legally be able to act upon those codes. And that's a criticism, of course, that you hear a lot because I think it is still very much based on the values of traditional or the more conservative Islamic beliefs.
I have the feeling that many things are also changing with time, in especially UAE. And I think certain things that were not imaginable a couple of years ago, 10, even 5 years ago, nowadays are massively changing. And maybe it is not still legal by the law, but a lot of things are already there and they are happening because it is really progressing. It is really evolving. It has a lot of people from Western world coming over, and unless someone would report them in a certain situation, then I think maybe they would face some charges. However, what I think is if it doesn't bother anyone, no one is really facing any issues because everyone's extremely tolerant. And from the other side, the acceptance level is maybe even higher than in other places. So I think it is really changing and progressing a lot.
Yeah, I think that's also it, is that we are kind of on this threshold where they do tend to open up the economy for foreigners, and they do tend to let in a lot of people from all over the world. And I mean a lot of people, like a really big mix of people. So many of those big cities or places where people actually go for work, they do tend to be a true melting pot. And that's also why I think there's such a difference between the actual feeling of being there and what you know from the countries on paper.
That's true, and it is already being stated one of the safest places to live in. And in a way, I do feel that walking by night feels very safe. No one is really trying to talk to you or follow you. And also, the level of robberies is pretty low. Yeah, I've never had any issues actually.
Yeah, so the next point is advanced surveillance, monitoring, and censoring. So the UAE deploys some of the world's most advanced systems to monitor private spaces, internet activity, and even individuals' phones and devices. So that means that the government retain a very strong grip on internet providers or on any of the suppliers within the public domain and online activities and people's identity. And I think that is something that you could probably say something about.
Yes, this one maybe is affecting me directly because we are used to using WhatsApp for calls. However, in Dubai, people use WhatsApp for messaging, but they do not call on WhatsApp because WhatsApp is blocked to do the calls.
Yeah, many of the online communication tools that you are used to from the West, they absolutely don't work in the UAE.
Yeah.
Many of them are blocked.
So
Yeah.
it has
So
some limitations.
it seems as if the UAE as a nation does keep a lot more control over the individuals within the borders.
Yeah, that happens also in the cinemas
Yeah.
or even when you already fly Emirates and you come to Dubai, you already have movie that was adjusted. Netflix works, however, not every movie is there. Some movies are censored or some pieces of the movies are cut off. And also HBO, I think it does not work at all.
No.
And for example, Disney, actually Disney has a different
Different
library, exactly. So it is specified for the region and not everything is available there. And also when you buy the subscription, it's a different plan.
Yeah, and also I noticed it myself that the UAE is gearing way more towards face identity for everything. So for entering the country, but also for payments, for some promotional plans, and many of the services that exist. For example, even with Miral is a very good example of that. Face ID is a very important aspect of it. If you use your Face ID throughout Yas Island, for example, and you connect it to your app, you get discounts on things. And I think that's a very strong incentive for them to also, have a better understanding of who is on Yas Island, who's making use of the services. And I think that's definitely something that the UAE is both very innovative in, but at the same time, you can say that it is different on the level of privacy and personal identity.
A bit controversial as well.
Yeah. A very important point, of course, way too much to discuss right now, but it is women's rights. The UAE still upholds a very male-biased set of laws, mostly based on Muslim beliefs. And it is clear that there has been an introduction of more progressive laws, but they tend to apply to non-Muslims and also to many foreigners that are actually in the UAE. It's also, of course, known that the UAE doesn't easily issue a passport or citizenship to people to become a UAE citizen. So there is a general, very, very small percentage of inhabitants of the UAE are actual citizens. and many of the people are still foreigners and they remain foreigners. That's also why they have different sets of laws. And did you notice anything like that, Alex, when you were there?
There are certain maybe cultural aspects, I would say. So, for example, if you go to Grand Mosque, it is understandable that you should cover yourself more. You should, as a woman, cover most of your body, including your hair and ankles. And for example, a man does not need to cover as much as a tourist. But I would say this is mainly in governmental buildings or in headquarter buildings or religious institutions. The other places are not as strict, and most of the people they dress pretty liberal, I would say. It depends where they're from also.
I think there is still a very strong binary view towards men and women. There's a very strong segregation between men and women.
Yeah, the model of the family is also different. The man is still more of a provider. It is a very common thing to hear that a woman is a housewife.
And also legally, the men have much more still the right or even the necessity in many cases to give their permission for many things.
Yeah.
For example, over custody over the children or decisions about the children, but also in many cases divorce, which is a very sensitive topic in Muslim countries.
But there are certain things that I really admire. For example, approach to the families. I have the feeling it is way more family oriented, and a lot of places have lots of facilities for kids. It is always taken into account, and no one is looking at you weirdly when you come with a large family. Unlike in Europe, I have the feeling that kids sometimes are a burden and they are not as convenient for the surrounding, and it's totally different mindset, I would say. The surrounding is more approaching the kids, sometimes even taking care of them. They're a bit spoiled, I have to say.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to realize that from what I noticed myself is that I don't see that segregation or any difference in behavior amongst foreigners in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. From most of the people that I see, regardless if it's men or women, I have the feeling that you can quite easily live according to your own values, and there will not be any, you will not stand out, basically.
Yeah, that's true. You are free to do, if you don't harm anyone, you can just be your individual self.
Yeah. And then the last point is also a very big topic, and that is, of course, migrant workers and their rights. So according to some sources, migrant workers form 88% of the total UAE's population, which is massive. The UAE also retains a system called kafala, which is a sponsorship system which basically ties the migrant workers' visas to their employers. And this gives quite a lot of power to the employers that puts the workers at risk of fines, arrest, detention, and sometimes even deportation. I think in many cases the criticism is that this might happen without any due process because there is just inherently more power with the employer. There is also allegedly a system of mainly low-paid workers, forced labor, and also passport confiscation and wage theft and illegal recruitment still happens.
There's also no minimum wage.
And also, like we mentioned before, workers' unions are not permitted. So this is, of course, a very big topic, and I think it's also not a secret how fast the Middle East has been developing and how fast they're able to build. From the Western point of view, you look at it and you think, how is it even possible? Well, it is possible because there are so many also migrant workers working in construction. And the Human Rights Watch has consistently documented exposure to extreme heat with inadequate protection, health hazards, and serious health consequences, or even many related deaths. That's, of course, a very serious topic.
Yeah, definitely. It is extremely serious and very controversial. Everyone comes to the Middle East for something, and they look for better life, mainly to provide for their families back home. And everyone comes from different background, and there are some countries and societies which are extremely poor, and for them even the lowest salary in Dubai is already a month of life back home. And that's why they do it. That's why they agree to do so, like construction site, but also food deliveries during
We've witnessed it ourselves that for many months of the year it is so extremely hot that no one really wants to be outside, and many people cannot be outside, and still you see many of the construction workers working.
Because it is very common to order everything in Dubai, and it can come extremely fast. The craziest example is one of my friends ordered air fryer, and it arrived 10 minutes later to her apartment. So sometimes it can be really extreme.
I think that's it, right? It's an extremely fast-moving, fast-developing, fast-building society, and the only way for them to achieve that is by sacrificing a certain level of comfort or even human rights. And I think that's the controversial part about it.
Yeah, definitely.
You hear us say Dubai quite a lot because Alex lives in Dubai, so for you it's easier to reflect on what you see in Dubai. Although Abu Dhabi and Dubai have very similar, I think, in terms of daily life and those policies. But what I can say is that regardless of all those big topics that we just discussed, I did see a massive progression over time. I was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi the first time in 2015. And ever since I was there then and now, I have seen such a change. I can say a couple of things that I just saw from observation is that, first of all, I had the feeling that back then in 2015, it was much more policed. And by that, I mean that I saw much more physical police forces walking around, guarding places, driving around. There was much more presence of authority, let's say, even visually. And I have the feeling that that is much less right now. It probably has to do also with the fact that they innovated in what we discussed earlier, different ways of surveilling. So I don't think they need physical police officers that much anymore. Another thing is a more Western approach, I think, to, for example, doing business in general. Back then in 2015, it was pretty rare to be able to buy alcohol, especially in places that are within sight from street level or that are public. Right now, it is much more common to get alcohol. You can quite easily order a wine or a beer, or in many places they serve cocktails. And another thing I also noticed is that there used to be a very strong emphasis on married couples or married life or family life. And I have the feeling that also the approach towards non-married couples or towards, let's say, boyfriend-girlfriend situations, but even to same-sex relationships, I think that changed a lot. And it's also something maybe that you notice.
I hear from colleagues living in the UAE for longer that it was not like that before. Before, you had to respect the culture way more and be more careful about it. Right now, everyone is kind of dressing the way they want. And there's way more examples like that. Like you've mentioned, the alcohol, it is the parties, the nightlife in general in Dubai is quite extensive. To show how progressive it's becoming, there is a planned first UAE's casino in Ras Al Khaimah by 2027.
Yeah, I think it was unthinkable in the past. Gambling in
there
the
are
UAE.
I think official landmarks, because I think there were things already happening.
Exactly. There
Behind
is
the
an
door,
underground scene.
Exactly, underground casinos. I think
one
for sure.
The world's largest. Also alcohol and
most
drugs
parties, everything. But I think right now it is just more official. Which is a palace, and there is.
I think that's a good point to close this part of the podcast. As you can see, those are very important subjects to take into account.
Which is an iconic art and civilization museum.
All right, and that's kind of it. We went through all the topics that we regard to be important to discuss around this massive announcement. And it's going to be very interesting to follow the news now and to see what's going to happen. But it is also known that Miral is very good at hiding what they are doing until the moment that it's actually done. I talked to one of the suppliers who said something really interesting to me, one of the major roller coaster suppliers who said something really interesting to me. He said that even their owner didn't know about this announcement for Disney to work together with Miral. And the owner, after the announcement, called Miral. And apparently he was met with the answer, "I was already expecting your call." So yeah, it's a very interesting story, and I know that now the conversations are happening between the roller coaster and the theme park suppliers and Miral. So it is in full swing. So it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. I do expect that it's going to take another year to 2 years to actually get a decent concept art or like a park layout, a master plan.
So some quite exciting things are coming
Yeah,
up.
quite exciting times, and definitely also an opportunity, like we expressed multiple times, for Abu Dhabi and the UAE to show themselves from a different light. Maybe they can take away the worries and the criticism from the world by just showing that, no, we are doing it differently. You know, that would be really amazing if this partnership with Disney and Miral could show that there's progressive thinking and there's progressive working in Abu Dhabi. And if you're interested in knowing a bit more about Abu Dhabi versus Dubai, but also the whole theme park landscape in the UAE, then give a listen to our episode, which is called Face Off United Arab Emirates Edition. There we actually highlight some of the differences and the stuff that is on offer already in the UAE. And that was our discussion about Disneyland Abu Dhabi and the collaboration between Miral and Disney. And I really hope that this doesn't fizzle out and become just another announcement in the Middle East that's not going to happen. But from the other side, you know, there's really big stuff happening right now, like with Qiddiya City in Saudi Arabia. But also, you know, Yas Island is still growing and it's still happening over there. So we'll see. We'll see. It's a very interesting story. Normally we would say trip on, trip off, or consider.
Definitely trip on, but in the future.
But I can already say Yas Island, trip on, I think we would both say.
Yeah.
And as always,
Our tip.
go on and plan your next trip.